Let's go ahead and bring in Steiner Sports CEO, Brandon Steiner.
One of the country's top memorabilia moguls.
I have an unbelievable guest, Brandon Steiner.
Brandon's second to none.
I don't say this often, but I am a diehard Jet fan at heart when I was a kid, even though I do love the Giants now. And I argue about this all the time. Can you be a Jet and Giant fan at the same time? But I'm never wavering as far as being a fan of yours. You are the guts of gangrene. I think about that sack exchange when I think about just listening to Jet games on the air. You always do a great job. Marty Lyons, how are you?
I'm doing great.
We were just talking a little memory lane about Alabama and their dominance. So I think we got to start there just for a minute. Then we'll talk about the Jet situation. But college football, you like the situation. You like the situation with Saban. You got to be happy with your team. Roll Tide. But what do you like? What do you like about college football? Anything you want to change there?
Well, I don't think there's anything I want to change. I think the difference between college football and the NFL is tradition. You know, you look at the great tradition from Coach Bryant to where they are now with Nick Saban. There's a style of football. There's a demand on every time you put on that red jersey. There's that tradition that goes into the play. The fans are tremendous. They don't. When you see little girls down there at a college atmosphere and they're dressed up like a cheerleader, be honest with you, Brandon, they want to be cheerleaders. That's the following that they get. I think life in the NFL, especially playing for the Jets, you have fans that, as long as you're winning, they're fans. When you start to lose, there's a lot of criticism.
It's been tough.
But that's the way the NFL should be.
It's been
You're
tough.
getting paid to go out there and perform, and when you're not performing and the ticket prices keep going up and the PSAs are high, people are going to complain. They have the right to complain.
Before we get to the Jet thing, because I'm optimistic, I'm more fearful. I'm more faithful than fearful with the Jets. Maybe this could be their run. Maybe they got the quarterback. But talk to me about Bear Bryant, Nick Saban, comparison of the two.
Well, it would be hard for me to compare Nick Saban because, first of all, I'm biased. I have a great deal of love and respect for, Coach Bryant, everything that he's done for me, not just on the field but off the field. I think he prepared every one of his players to be successful when the game of football ended. He always had core values. He always believed that an individual had to have strength in religion, a strength in family, a strength to get an education. And then he used to say, if we have time, let's try to win some football games. I think Nick Saban is the same type of coach. He's very demanding.
Did you go to Alabama for Bear Bryant, though? Was he the reason why you went?
I went to Alabama because, number one, it was 700 miles away from home. And I knew that if I was going to have an opportunity to make it in the NFL, go someplace that was going to be challenging for you, and when times got difficult, I couldn't run back home to be around my high school buddies and be that big fish in the small pond. I knew that when my mom and my brother dropped me off, that the only way I was going to go home is if I quit. And I knew that there were people in that area. We only had 26, 28 guys on my high school football team. That I knew that there was a lot of rumble saying, why are you going to Alabama? You'll never play. And be honest with you, it was all that negativity that when I got there and times got tough and you thought about, wow, do I really want to pay the price? I never wanted to give somebody that satisfaction of going back home saying, you were right. You were right. I couldn't make it there. So I just couldn't quit on myself and give those people that believed that I couldn't make it the satisfaction of saying, hey, you're right.
I felt the way with Syracuse even. Like, you're going to go to Syracuse. How are you going to make it up there? You're in the middle of the sticks. There's nothing going on outside New York City. Not to mention the curriculum's going to be too hard. I'm like, I'm not coming back. I'm going to, when I come back next time you see me, we'll be with my degree. You've been around Nick Saban a little bit, though. What do you like about him? He's obviously he's winning, and he's the charisma and the focus on winning and building not only a winning championship program, but it seems like he's had an effect on a lot of men there too.
Well, I think so. I think he's very demanding. I think no matter the success of winning a national championship last year, he's ready for this year. He doesn't live off past accomplishment. And he's very demanding, not just of himself, not just of his players, but also the coaching staff. There's only one way to do it at the University of Alabama, and that's Coach Saban's way. He's proven to be successful. I don't think that there's many people that can question him on the way he coaches, the demands that he puts on his players, his coaching staff, and then the end results. The bottom line in college is you got to have that end result, being successful, number one, on the football field, but also in the classroom. You have to have a high percentage of your student athletes graduating. And if they don't graduate and they go into football or they go into basketball early, have that commitment to bring them back so that they do get their degree. I remember I went back and got my degree. It took me 41 years to get it. But when I left in 1979, I went in and I thanked Coach Bryant for the opportunity to play. And I remember he told me, you're going to be very fortunate. You'll play a game you love. You'll build financial security for you and your family. He goes, but promise me one day you'll come back and get your education. And I shook his hand. Coach Bryant died in 1983. I didn't go back and get my degree till 2016.
But you wanted to keep your word.
I wanted to keep my word because, as you know, your word and your integrity may be the only thing that you have. And we live in a society now where we've gotten away from that. When people say they're going to do something, well, here, sign this contract. What happened to the old-fashioned way of the way your parents were that brought you up, my parents? Put your hand out there. Your word is your honor. And it always haunted me. And I went back a couple times and tried to get it, and it just didn't work out. And then, I had 2 kids down there graduate from Alabama. I had one go back and get his master's degree. And I just felt beside, me preaching to them that you need to get your education, you need to get your degree.
You need to show them.
Be an example. Fulfill your words for Coach Bryant. And I never realized that walking up there to get your diploma was going to be so emotional. That day, I think there was, I don't know how many people were graduating, but there was probably 3 of us over 60 years old. And you got the young kids walking through going, wow. You know what? Because life was just going to start for them. Here we were at 60 with our children, our grandchildren, going back and accomplishing something that is not going to put more money in our pocket, but it's just one of those, it fulfilled a void that was in our lives. And for me, it filled a void, and it also completed a promise.
And it also sets an example. I think in parenting, a lot of times what I see is parents talking about the right thing to do, expecting you to do the right thing as you being my child, but you got to show your kids the right thing to do. You need to physically show them some of the things that you're talking and preaching about being important. As a parent, you do represent with your actions.
Right.
And I think parents forget that sometimes.
I agree with that statement because I think that sometimes when you look outside the 4 walls of a house to try to find a role model, already that's a problem. And so many kids come from broken homes now where the parents are divorced and they don't know what to do. You're right. If we don't teach our kids, the difference between right and wrong, and we don't stress to our kids, sometimes in life, you have to do the right things. Whether you agree with it or not, do the right thing.
But I talk about doing the right thing, but thinking about the right thing will lead you to doing the right thing too.
9 out of 10 times.
It's a good start.
It's a good start.
It's a good start. And that brings me to the NFL. Like, I think that a lot of these guys don't do the right thing because they're not thinking about the right things.
Well,
how do you fix that? How do you fix what's going on now in this
I
league?
don't know if we can fix it. If you're talking
Really?
about kneeling during the national anthem, every time I would look down from the press box and see somebody kneeling, I didn't think, I didn't look at it like they're protesting for the right reason. They're protesting on a platform that if you go by Arlington National Cemetery, you go out to all these cemeteries and you see all the headstones and, my dad, I still have his casket flag, and you realize that so many people gave their life for the flag and the opportunity for us to have the freedom that we do have. There's got to be a different venue that they can protest.
Did you like my blog this morning?
I didn't read it this
My
morning.
blog this morning was, I think we all should be kneeling, just not for the national anthem. I think we all need to be kneeling. We all need to be speaking up. We all need it. This is not a time to be silent. And that was my blog this morning. I was like, listen, I'm in favor of everyone kneeling. We don't need football players only kneeling. Everyone needs to kneel. But not during the national anthem.
I agree.
And by the way, what's stopping you from kneeling to start the second half? Screw up the TV stations a little bit. Start the second half 40 seconds later in a moment of protest. So instead of doing the kickoff, you kneel. What are they going to do? Penalize everybody?
They can't. But
right.
I think we got to understand as professional athletes, it's a trickle effect. You go from the NFL, if it's accepted there, it'll trickle down to college.
Yeah.
And it may not make it through college because the coaches are going to be more demanding, and they have more of a hammer on some of these younger athletes. But then it trickles down to high school. Where do you stop?
But what would you have done if you were playing in today's game and a bunch of your teammates are kneeling? What would you do? Do you feel the peer pressure of that?
The peer pressure is you have to do what you think is right for yourself and right for your family. I could never see myself kneeling, never.
That's fair. But what do you do about the league, Marty? Though you've been through you've been through a few decades now of this game, and so many guys in trouble, so many issues, and it seems like they blame the commissioner for everything. I mean, I can't imagine what it must be like to be him.
Well, I think everybody has to hold themselves accountable. You can't use the league, you can't use your status in the league as a platform for your excuse. It's just unacceptable. You're a grown man. You have to hold yourself accountable for your action.
Is it a few that are rooting it for all, or is it a lot that are rooting it for a few?
I think we're hearing more negative stories sell more newspapers, or more negative stories bring more listeners to a broadcast. People don't want to hear, I'm not saying they don't want to hear, they don't hear all the goodwill that players like Eli Manning, J.J. Watts, other players that represent the NFL are doing in their community. They're hearing more of the negative, a DUI, a domestic violence, a gun incident, rather than the good things. And I think that there is a lot of good things going on with a lot of players in the NFL, and I think that we need to focus more on the good rather than the bad.
We haven't talked about you that much and all the good work you're doing. What's driving you these days? What's keeping you up at night that you want to do more of, or what's you're excited about when you wake up in the morning?
Well, I think, number one, I have a great job at the Land Tech Group. We build and design athletic fields. And number two, I have a foundation.
Is there something new with athletic fields that's happening that I don't know about?
No,
or is
we
just
specialize
a state-of-the-art,
in state-of-the-art natural grass, synthetic grass, radiant heat, scoreboards, bleachers.
Wow.
And we've been pretty successful. I've been there 18 years. The owners, Mike and Ed Ryan, they're number one supporters of the foundation.
What's the main difference between the field you played on as a kid and the field that kids are going to be playing on in the future?
Well, the main difference, if it's in synthetic grass, it used to be the old knitted nylon. It used to be the old, what they would call AstroTurf.
The burns.
It would get hot. It would get sticky when a lot of non-contact injury. Now there's synthetic grass. It's an uprighted piece of fiber.
Nice.
And you infill it with the sand and rubber. So if you took a piece of sod and cut it in half, and you took a synthetic field now and cut it in half, the profiles would be the same. So I have that, and then, 36 years of working with the foundation, where you work with terminally ill children that are being cheated out of life, and
the Marty Lyons Foundation.
Right,
the Marty Lyons Foundation helping terminally ill kids get their wish and also try to help them through tough times.
Well, we give them their special wish in life, and we've entertained the thought of doing a second wish if a child goes into remission and they have a relapse. I think nothing's more important than if we can provide hope and love to a family that needs it. And hopefully, God willing, that the child survives and that there's a better tomorrow. But unfortunately, probably 50 to 60% of the kids we work with from the age of 3 to 17 will not survive their illness, will pass on and leave us before the age of 18. And I've always been a firm believer that you can learn a lot if you listen to these kids. These kids know that they're sick, number one. Number two, they're not afraid to die. Number three, they stress if you have faith, then don't fear dying. And they teach you that if you have faith, faith is believing in something you can't see. And in death, you're rewarded by seeing everything that you believed in. So many things that happen in life with adversity that we try to find an answer to is all part of God's plan. And we can't ever find an answer, but that doesn't change what we can do tomorrow. And, for 36 years, we now operate in 10 states. We've helped over 7,500 kids. We've raised over $35 million. You guys here at Steiner Sports have been with us probably for the last 25 years.
It's your life work, though, when you think about it. I mean, that's been your greatest work.
People have asked, when you run into people nowadays, do they remember you more from the Jets, more from broadcasting, or more from the foundation? And I tell them it's pretty simple. I run into more parents now that say, hey, you know what? You helped my child in 1980. I never had a chance to tell you thank you. And my first response is, well, how is your child doing? And then unfortunately, a high percentage of the time they go, unfortunately, our daughter passed away. And you tell them how sorry you are, and they come back with a quick answer, well, don't be. If it wasn't for you, it wasn't for your organization, we would have nothing to hold on to. You allowed us to create memories that carried us through. So, I tell
That's great.
people,
Great
having
work.
God-given tools and playing the game of football and being surrounded by good people, being in the right place at the right time, being with Coach Bryant, being a part of the New York Sack Exchange, representing the University of Alabama in 2011, getting inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame and the Ring of Honor by the Jets in 2013. Those were all team sports. Being surrounded by good teammates that made me play harder. But the big thing is when you make a choice to do something that's going to make a difference in somebody's life, you're making a choice. Has nothing to do with your ability. What it does is it has to do with your integrity. It has to do with the way you were brought up. It has to do with the values that you have in life. Because when all is said and done, and we're all going to die one day, Brandon, it's what did you accomplish from the time you were born to the time you died, and did you take time to influence people in a positive way, to change the way that they would think, change the way that they would act, and make life better for them? And all of us have an opportunity. You and I may have a better opportunity.
We were all put here to help each other.
Right,
not
but you
to,
and I may have a better opportunity to do that because of the God-given platform that we have. Speaking in front of a mic, going to do a dinner. And when I had a stroke last year, I actually told my wife, you know what, I have God's telling me one of two things. Number one, slow down, or number two, do more.
But there's always a message.
And the message was for me, do more with the platform that I've given you. Go out. Make life better for those that are willing to listen. And for those that won't listen, have a strong enough opinion that you will bring them over and one day they will listen. Don't ever give up on somebody because they don't believe in your opinion. Don't give up on somebody because you don't think you can help them. I work with kids now. I work with parents that, unfortunately, that have lost their child. And the first thing I tell them is, you know what, tomorrow morning you got to get up. You got to have a starting point. They go, well, you don't understand. I can't even walk. I said, well, get up, walk. When you get as far as you can and you know you can make it home, draw a line. Take a piece of chalk, make a mark. I said, then the following day, walk to that mark and walk a little bit further, because life is not going to stop for any one of us, if we lose a loved one. And that is probably the hardest thing to do. And think about losing a child.
Oh, it's got to be impossible.
It's devastating. It's the ultimate sin in life that you say, God, why would you do that? And again, it's a part of his plan that we can never understand. I don't want to say you fully have to accept it, but in 1982, my oldest son, Rocky, was born on March 4th. My dad died on March 8th at the age of 58. And a little boy named Keith, who was 5.5, died on March 10th. And that was God's way of saying, what are you going to do? And the first thing I did was blame myself. ask, what am I doing wrong in life that God, you would do this to me? And then the more I blamed myself, the further I got away from everything that I believed in. And it started with faith. And I remember Coach...
How'd you get back on track?
Because I was sitting there one day and I looked in the mirror and I didn't like the reflection that I saw, and it was me. And I realized that I was turning into something that my father wouldn't have liked, that Keith wouldn't have liked. And I remember the quote that Coach Bryant told me. He said, a winner in the game of life is the person that gives of themselves so others can grow. Here was that opportunity. Are you going to keep running or work your way back and give of yourself so others can grow? And, 36 years later, I've been surrounded by good people here in the tri-state area, people that donate the money, people that give of their time, because that's the only thing we can't make more of. We can't make more time. We can always make more money. Can't make more time. So if we can preserve the time for these children and for their families, the rewards are endless. Yeah, there's nothing greater to me than to have somebody come back and tell you 20 years after the fact of doing something good that you made a difference in their life.
I always say, what can you do for someone that maybe can never even repay you?
Yeah, but you know what? We live in a world where the athletes, especially the athletes,
so much expected.
Instant gratification. I have a good game on Sunday. I want to read about what the writers write about me on Monday. That's instant gratification. Everybody deserves instant gratification. But real gratification is when you make a difference in somebody's life. They tell you thank you. You kind of forget about it. 20 years later, they come back and they go, you know what, Brandon? If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be in this spot. And it makes you stop and think.
That's the real joy, though.
If we can choose our words wisely and watch our actions, we can all influence people. And it gets back to role models. Parents have to teach their kids. This is the right way to do it. I can't ask you to do it if I'm not going to do it myself.
I love it. On a closing note, the Jets, just changing the subject, just 360 here for a minute. Can this franchise find its way? Because it seems like it's been on just a really bad roll for a while, and you're around it. You're at practices. Can the karma, the energy, or I should say the culture, can this get into a winning kind of way?
I think they're getting there. I think last year was the first time that you saw the first round draft choice, Jamal Adams, and then you had the second round player, Marcus May, come from LSU, come from Florida, and bring that type of atmosphere, that college atmosphere, that enthusiasm back into the NFL, back to the New York Jets. I think that you got Sam Darnold coming in from USC. These are big college players. And nobody wants to feel like they are the savior. When I came in 1979, New York Jets, they were going from a 3-4 front to a 4-3. I had a starting position right away. Was I dominating my rookie year? I was far from dominating. But we had a guy, the leader of the team at that time was Joe Klecko. And Joe Klecko used to hold everybody accountable.
Oh, he was what a captain was about.
Yeah, but it wasn't the coaches. The coaches are there to coach. The coaches aren't there to motivate you. If you can't motivate yourself to play in an NFL game, there's a problem. But when you have a teammate like Joe Klecko that holds you accountable every single Sunday by telling you, you better be ready to play. And if you're not ready to play, stay on the bench, because either you're going to get hurt or I'm going to get hurt, and I got to play alongside of you.
One of your favorite teammates of all time, Joe
One of
Klecko?
my favorite, and he's still to this day one of my good friends. I think he should be in the NFL Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
No, he doesn't have a Super Bowl ring on his resume, but it's not his fault. It's not his fault. He was a team player.
He was a warrior.
He was a team leader. Both on and off the field. And we were fortunate. I was fortunate to have, when we had the New York Sack Exchange, I had Joe Klecko on
Hold on
one
one
side.
second. If anybody, Ben, we got to post this and ask people if they think Joe Klecko should be in the Hall of Fame, and if people are aware of what his accomplishments, the Pro Bowl at 3 different positions, all this stuff. I want to hear from you. Do you think Joe Klecko should be in the Hall of Fame? And what's your thoughts on Joe? We got to get that kind of going a little bit. That conversation on Twitter as well as Instagram. You get me crazy.
This is your show.
You got to take action.
You can do whatever you want.
Well, you know, this is my blog this morning. It's like we all should be taking action.
Yeah, we should.
You know, we don't need to kneel during the national anthem. Take action.
And
take action. Say something. Like today, I'm getting all over the Joe Klecko bandwagon because
I think the big thing is everybody has to have an opinion, right or wrong.
Yeah.
Your opinion may be different from mine, but I should be able to listen to your opinion and respect it.
Yeah.
That is the problem that I see between the right and the left. Nobody wants to listen to anybody's opinion. And, you know, unfortunately, they say, hey, if you want to start an argument at a party, talk about religion or politics. So I try to stay out of both. You know, I try to tell my kids, you know what, when it's time to vote, voice your opinion, have a strong enough opinion to make your decision, and then whatever decision you make, we live with it.
That's right. Well, thank you. Thanks for the Marty Lyons Foundation, all the work you do. If you want to help out Marty, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. Right?
.org. And
always happy to get some donations, or, you know, a lot of times in-kind stuff, you know, where you can help a kid have his dream or have his wish come true.
Well, I always tell people we look for three types of people. One, financially, the more money we can raise, the more kids we can help. If you don't have money, maybe you have time. You know, it's the only thing we can't make more of. So your time is very valuable, and whatever time that you can give us as a volunteer, we're willing to accept. And if you don't have money, you don't have time, give us your thoughts and prayers. I truly believe that if a prayer is heard, we save a life. And if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And
well, thank you.
I am just truly blessed by having a great supporting cast, great friends like you guys up here, and we're going to keep plugging away. We just had our golf outing. We're going to have another one in September. We've had back-to-back years where we've raised over $1 million.
Wow.
You can't raise money fast enough, though.
Wow. Can't do enough
just
good.
Can't raise it fast
But
enough.
keep doing the good. I appreciate it.
We're going to
Thank you,
try.
my friend.
My pleasure. Thank you.